Hey, leaders. Welcome to this week's episode of Happy Leader Podcast. I am your host, Coach T. Payne, and I'm really grateful that you decided to join this week. Let me start with a question this time. How many leadership decisions have you delayed because you didn't want to disappoint somebody? Or how many times have you been on the receiving end of a leader who has delayed a decision that needed to be made, not because they did not know what to do, but because they knew that the decision would result in some people or at least somebody not being happy? Well, if you find yourself either on either end of that spectrum that I just mentioned, then you're a part of what I have called the leadership approval trap. And it is a trap. It's a trap because seeking approval at the risk of making decisions turns out to not be a good way to lead. And we'll talk about that a little bit in this episode. I don't want you to fret if you've been the decision maker that has delayed because you didn't want to disappoint someone. That's human. I think it's human. But don't fret. We're going to talk about it. And hopefully, by the end of our conversation, you'll have some really good thoughts about it and you'll have some ways to navigate, the next time, because there will be a next time, but the next time that you are in that boat of, I need to make a decision. I know what I need to decide. But it's going to be hard to make the decision because it's going to be unpopular. I do want to take a small caveat over here, put in the parking lot, the difference between consensus building and seeking approval. Consensus building is a way to make decisions in the framework of a team. In fact, a lot of leaders decide that consensus building is a way to make hard decisions because you take some of the weight off of the individual and it's more of a group decision. And so you get some automatic wins there. Some things such as group buy-in and accountability can happen when you seek leading through consensus building. So I'm not talking about consensus building when I talk about the leadership approval trap. I'm really talking about when you know what to do, but you're hesitant or delayed or struggling in any regard to make that decision because you already know that as soon as you say yes or no, or as soon as you decide which way it's going to go, there's going to be some people that are unhappy. Let me tell y'all a good example of this. It was during COVID. And so there was lots of policies that were flying around and, everyone's trying to stay ahead of it. I had a boss who did something really smart. And COVID leadership was a time where you could rise and fall with if people liked you based on the decisions you were making for how far they could travel, how long they could stay, how many people could be in the room. Remember that? So I had a boss who took leaders into a room and we needed to build the policy about how we were going to handle allowing people to move around during the pandemic because we were at that stage of it. And he did something really smart. And y'all have heard me talk about Gil a lot because that was a critical time of leading and he did so very well. So one thing he did, he needed to make a policy to tell us all what to do about how far we could let our people go during COVID and all these other rules. What he did was through consensus building, which mitigated the need for seeking approval, he had us build it by doing this model called yes and. I think that's what it's called. That's what I call it now when I do it. But yes and. And yes and works by one person. You only can say yes and. You cannot say no to a recommendation. So he tells us we're going to write this policy. The way I want you to do it is build on what someone else says by saying yes and. Put it on the sticky note and then we'll put it on the board. And so that challenged you to whenever you wanted to say, well, that's not going to work or that's not a good idea, you couldn't say that. You had to say, yes, and let's make sure that we communicate this through all means available so everyone has a chance to hear it. Or, yes, and but let's be sure that we implement this policy from the top down so that they see it happening so there's no confusion in rank having privileges that others don't have. So at the end of that, maybe it was an hour. At the end of that, though, we had a consolidated policy of what we had all agreed to as leaders. and we walked out of that room ready to implement the policy before it ever went through the administrative process and all those things. In that regard, he demonstrated how you can make a decision that will not be liked by everybody, but use consensus building to generate the right decision. And that stuck with me heavily as I have led groups and teams, and even like my family and Bible study groups. Like, it's a really good way to use consensus to overcome the approval trap, because for the reasons I mentioned. But one important thing it did was it made us all owners in that policy. And so we all were to blame if it was not going to go well. And then that was immediate advocacy. So, for instance, I walked out of that room, gathered my team, and said, here's what we're going to do. I met with a group of peers and our leader, and we're going to do this. And everyone, they could ask questions, and we bought into it and we moved forward. So, that's one good way where you can manage consensus building to do hard decision development, so that you're not stuck trying to make a hard decision by yourself and risk approval, or thinking that you need approval because the decision is going to be unpopular. One of the things I think that gets leaders into the trap of leadership approval is how you're rewarded for having good ratings, right? For instance, in some of the jobs that I've held, there a part of your job is based on other people's opinions of how well you're doing. So you want a good approval. So I've seen people in leadership delay hard decisions because the outcome is going to show up on that survey about how they led, and they have something important in their career coming up, so they don't want to blemish, so they delay making that right decision. I'm not judging that they shouldn't do that, but I am saying that there's a better way. You can simply make those hard decisions, even if it's going to cost you a little bit of approval, because over the consistency of making hard decisions the right way, you will have enough approval to do what you need to do. Now, I'm not saying that it's bad to want to be liked, and I think there's something there to talk about in leadership about likability. And being liked makes it easier for you to get things done, but you don't risk getting things done so that you can be liked. When leaders are inconsistent in their timeliness of decisions, then it hurts your organization. So whenever you're faced with, I got to make a decision, some people are going to be disappointed by it, but I need to make it. I want to encourage us to make that decision early as possible. It is far better to go ahead and lose some people in the beginning and then work to get them back, than to delay, have people in confusion, and then, trying to catch everybody sometime after that. I think you put more work on yourself when you do that. I'm not saying that making unpopular decisions is easy, but I am saying it's necessary and it's expected of you if you're leading, that that's what you do. So let me give you a little story. This is not serious, and that's why I'm going to offer it. So it's a little light, but to me it was important. So I did not realize how competitive I was until a few years ago. So I like to win. Yeah, I'm going to win. If I'm on the team, we're winning. So so we started playing sports, right? It was a big event for all the units, and we all formed our teams, and we had a series of, like sports events. So, like, you have field day when you were in probably elementary school, same thing. So we have sports day and we compete, and we get to this last event, and I think it was tug of war. And so it's my team versus the other team. And I think we were up for second place, right? Because first place had blew us out the water. So we shifted our our expectations so we can get second. So we're tugging, and some glitch happens where the referee has to make a decision, right? But the decision was in favor of my team because we had followed all the rules. It was something like we needed to build our team with a certain amount of makeup of people, right? Like maybe it had to be I don't know. You couldn't just stack it with like all the big dudes you could find around and put them against all the, not so big people. So we had followed all the rules, and the little flag on the rope went across the line, right? So it was challenged, and as it was challenged, I'm presenting my case to the referee, and I'm, no, 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 this is what happened. Look at the rules, make a decision. And the referee decides, I don't know. How about we do it again? I was disappointed because I said to the referee, you saw what happened. You read the rules. All you had to do was make the decision. And now you're going to make us do it again. So now we're going to have to win twice when we really should have just had to win once. And so even though that was just a sporting event, it translates to leadership, because when you have all the information in front of you and you delay making that decision just because you don't want to face the heat of being unpopular, well, then you have to challenge yourself to push through that and go ahead and make the decision. It's what it is. Why that matters a lot is because there's a difference between um, being liked, as I said, and there is a place for being liked, but more importantly, maybe, is being respected, right? Not feared. I'm not talking about being feared, because I know there's a conversation that could be had there, but I'm talking about being respected. Leaders that are respected are the ones who are consistent in their decision making. That is one trait of a respected leader. You may not even always agree with that leader, but you're going to respect them because you know the type of decision they're going to make. You're going to be able to anticipate what kind of decisions they're going to make because they're consistent with their decision making. Now, conversely to that, a leader who delays making hard decisions is going to be a leader who you don't trust that much and you're not going to respect so much because they're being inconsistent. I think organizations look for a leader who is going to confidently and competently, but at least confidently, lead them into a direction. If their leader cannot lead them into a direction, then they're not going to have many people to lead for very long. That's my experience. So building respect in your organization is important, and it is something that strong leaders, I believe, do well versus leaders who are seeking approval. I know another example that I've shared, and it was there was a hard decision I had to make, right? And so I won't say all the details because some of it might still be fresh for some people, but I had a process in a unit I was leading, and the process allowed people to directly tell me lots of stuff, and they did, like, a whole lot of stuff. And so once you know something, I had to do something. And in one particular case, it happened over a few cases, but this one meant that a person was going to lose their job because what happened would what happened required me to look deeper into it, and I found some inconsistencies with our organizational culture, with the law, with some rules that we had. And so the only possible outcome was this person would need to be put in a process to be out of work. Like, they can't work in the organization the way they were performing. So the decision to go forward with that was unpopular because the person in question had gained such notoriety in the organization. They were my go-to person for a lot of things because I didn't know all this was underlying. So to decide to go forward with even the investigation to look into this thing, to inquire of it, was not well, it was easy because it was the right thing to do, but I knew it had consequence. I knew that me going after this person was going to make some people who were very loyal to that person choose to no longer be so loyal to me, and that meant that it would be a little bit harder to do the things I would want to do in the organization. Well, knowing all that is part of being a good leader, but deciding to do it anyway is part of being a strong leader. So that's what I did. In that case, I faced the music, right? I knew that there's going to be a group of people who are going to be very mad at me for what this is going to look like. And also, I didn't have the freedom to tell them any information. And so, but the person, who I was looking into their actions, they did. And so that didn't help either when we're talking about approval and likability. Well, I lost a lot of that with a group of people in my organization. And and I needed it because it made it easier to lead, but I wasn't willing to trade it, trade being liked and being approved by them so that this thing could continue festering in the organization. So in the end, I rebuilt trust with them because some of the pieces of evidence that I would have wanted them to find out, they eventually saw some of it. And then, but not everybody. I did not get back to being the favorite on the list of some of them as I was before. But it was okay even still, because what happened was that the people who were looking to see what caliber of person is this, what will she do to this person who's popular, who looks to be as one of her favorites. I know you're not supposed to have favorites, but job, well, those are my favorites. And so people were looking, there was still a group of people looking to watch how I would carry out this decision. And so I didn't know about that group of people. All I knew about was the people who are going to be real mad because I'm going after something that they think is pretty sacred or at least untouchable. But what I ended up gaining, though, was the trust and more approval of those people who thought that nothing would happen in this situation, that they've seen people in my position before do nothing about the issue, even though they knew about the issue. And they thought that the person who had the things going on that we were investigating, they thought that that person was really untouchable because they had been doing it for so long and they've gotten away with so much. Like, what is she going to do? And so that we were able to do the right thing and do the work to do the right thing, it cost approval on one side, it cost ability on one side, but then I gained it on the other side from people who I wouldn't have had an opportunity to show them that I was worthy of leading them if I didn't lead well through that particular situation. So, as in most things, there's a trade off, right? So, you can be a leader who really wants to be liked, and you make rules that are safe so that you can be liked. And that's a way to do things. It's not, I don't think it's a good way, and I don't think it's the right way, but that's a way. You can do that, and you can hold on to being liked by the people who you think like you, or you can always, always, always make the right decisions that may cost you some of the likability. It may cost you some people being not so disappointed with you. It may cost you that, but I offer that those are short-term losses and you will have long-term gains on the other side of it. So here's what I'll end with for us. As we are discussing strong leadership, likability, decision making, let's be careful to remember that strong leaders are ones that have been cleared of being liked by people so much that it influences how they make decisions. Strong leaders are people who are going to make the right decision at all costs. They're not going to fumble the opportunities to have their integrity and their character speak in opposition of their reputation for how people see them, because we understand that to be a great leader, to be a strong leader, means that you must be one that makes timely decisions, even if they're not popular, or even if, or especially when people are going to be disappointed by some of your decisions, because the right decision is always the right decision. So hopefully this conversation has helped you, and I would like for you to take it and talk with your own leadership teams about it. Use this as a conversation with them about some of the examples that they may see in you, where you have delayed decisions because it's about growth. Or sometimes in their previous experiences where they have delayed decisions because they didn't want to disappoint someone, or they didn't want to lose points with a group of people, so that you can get better and you can lead better, and people can just have better experiences in this walk of building teams and building people. So be sure to put a comment down, like, share, subscribe, and let's continue the conversation at the next opportunity, which should be next week. So until I see you again, happy leading.